Hello and welcome to Ancient Ways, Modern Days Parenting Podcast. Today, we're going to be looking at screen time.
Ironic as you're watching this on a screen.
That's fair. And specifically looking at how screen time could be rewiring our children's brains.
It's true.
Even ours, to be fair.
Even ours, it rewires everyone's brains. Like fundamentally, you got to think you are, a portion of what you hang out with the most. So if you hang out the most with your phone, you're going to end up like a bunch of wires and rewired.
Like real, that's where you just went.
Remember, I have an IQ of 140. It's been a long day.
So do you know how long the average child now spends on a screen of some description?
Well, the average child I spend time with 0.
The average child, no, to be fair, that's not true. Because the
Okay, once
children
a
that
week.
go for therapy.
No, I spend time with. Okay, Brett. Yeah, Brett throws the equation off. I don't know. The average child. Wait, what age is a child?
Think like a child from like birth up until say 16.
But then it's like a 16-year-old's like 12 plus hours a day, but then like a baby is maybe 2 hours a day.
Average.
So somewhere between 2 and 16. So probably about 9 hours.
Close. It's 7 hours. So it's actually about 7 hours a day is the average. And yeah, it's less for the younger. And yeah, as you said, teenagers can be anywhere up to 12 hours a day, which is crazy. That's like half of a day. Like that's
It's
literally
it's
half
actually
of
half
a
a day.
day.
It's actually half of the day.
Literally.
Half of their life is wasted looking at a screen.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's a lot. Like that should shock us when we consider how many years ago was it we didn't even have screens? Like the telly box, as
The
David.
TV was like 1950s-ish. It
That's
started to come
insane.
in.
And in 50, 60 years, it's
Before
now
that was
12 hours
cinema.
a day.
Before that was cinema, like Charlie Chaplin's and whatnot. So
So, what's the problem with screen time, and how does screen time affect our brains and our children's brains development?
it does. It has a genuine genuine difference to the brains, to the eyes, to our hormones. It has a huge effect on everything in our life. And I think in a modern world where people tend to want better for their children than they had, the erroneous mistake comes in where they think screens is a way better.
Yeah.
And in all fairness, also, it's in part the education system's fault as well, where most of the education in today's world is based upon an iPad
It's true.
or basically an iPad and
It's true.
tablet
Most
type
people
device.
now need to have like a tablet for schools rather than a pencil and a paper.
And it's a huge problem from a parental point of view, because if your kids are going in the school system, you have to understand that this is actually important to combat the negative side effects of the screen time they have to do as part of modern education. Because it is not, if people genuinely want their children to be better than them, you've got to give them better life skills than you've got. And when your average child has no emotional capacity, no motivational skills, no ability to focus, no ability to self-drive, self-learn, self-work out problems, even to the point now where AI has taken away all of their creative skills and linguistic skills. Most kids don't know how to spell because of autocorrect, how much worse it's now getting because of AI writing everything for them. It's going to become quite a big problem, where you may be thinking you're giving them the best by giving them the latest iPhone, but actually all you're setting them up for is future failure, because they're not going to be able to emotionally regulate. They're not going to be able to sit still. They're not going to be able to focus well enough to learn a new job or a new craft. They're not going to be able to do anything apart from look at a screen and play computer games, which fundamentally is not actually helping your children be better than you. It's just creating a lifelong problem for yourself.
So, what actually happens to a child's brain as they're developing and they're exposed to a screen?
So it's kind of one of the most important things to remember when it comes to screen time is understanding light. Screens emit light. You look outside a window, you're seeing light. The light enters your eye, the eye sends information, it goes to your brain. Light can do things like cause cancer. Light can also do things like burn ants when you use a magnifying glass. Light can also do things like send people to sleep. Light can do things like warm things up. Light can do a lot of things. So when we then go, what is the light from a screen doing to our brains? It absolutely makes a huge difference because it's not natural. First and foremost, screens are flickering. They're flickering at 50 or 60 hertz. Now let's context of someone that can have fits, epileptic fits. Strobe lighting, let's make them have an epileptic fit.
Yeah, like the modern LED lights.
It shuts down their brain. Okay, modern LEDs are flashing at about 10, some up to 10,000 hertz. So barely recognizable from just a constant on to the visible eye, but these things actually affect the brain. And because of that, you know, that studies have been shown that frequent screen use highly increases ADHD-like behaviors. Why? Because the eyes and brains are constantly being exposed to a flickering stimulus.
So they have to respond to that.
Which then changes how the iris, your pupils are working, it changes the signals in your brain, and it changes it all to things that we weren't designed to do. And all of this then has further knock-on effects. And this is, you know, forget the flashing, forget the hertz, which is what you kind of call more common sense. If epileptic people can't be around flashing because it does damage to their brain that causes a neurological reset, you kind of go, well, just because we don't have epilepsy, why don't we think there is a similar cause and effect? So, you know, another big thing that people don't realize is when kids and children are exposed to high amounts of screen time, studies have shown there is a significant increase in white matter in those children's brains. You know, and that was found in 2019. So you think that was like 6 years ago.
Before the latest iPhone.
Yeah, so that was before COVID, which magnified the amount of screen time people had. Now, a decrease in white matter, why is that important?
Yeah, why?
The brain is meant to be gray. Gray brain is good brain. White brain is bad brain. So when there is an increase in white matter, that shows there are signs of neurological diseases on the way or being present. So in the case of children that are developing higher levels of white matter in the brain, it is signifying there is going to be some form of neurological or brain issue. And with those children, it's then shown they have communication issues, linguistic issues, of course, because their brain is not developing the way it should be.
I mean, I think about in the therapy center that we run, how many children have come in to us who have been wrongly diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, very wrongly. Some of them as young as 12 and 13 months, and they haven't hit their developmental milestones. And when you dig into the case history and understand why, majority of the time it was because they were exposed to a device from a young age for even a couple of hours a day, and that just completely stopped their development, specifically of like expressive communication skills. And so as you know, you remove the device and then you give them the support they need to learn those skills, there's no actual developmental delay. You can catch them up. But yeah, it really did.
It does a lot of damage to, you know, to the brain from, you know, the scientific point of view. But even if you apply a bit of common sense. Now, one thing people don't realize is children being bored is also an essential part of brain development. If children do not learn how to be bored, they cannot emotionally regulate themselves.
Yeah, that's true.
So that is a development that must be achieved, that children must be able to sit still or lie still, not do anything,
be entertained
and be okay with it. And normally this should happen for children within the first 1 or 2 years of their life, before they learn terroristic skills. Now, if children are not learning that skill early on because they're being exposed to screens, of course, there's now going to be a cause and effect. So let's put in the context of a baby lying there, bored out of his mind or her mind, because he can't do anything. I can't communicate. I can't do anything. My vision isn't actually that great yet because it still hasn't developed. Can't roll over. You stick him in front of a phone with all the flashing doodahs and ding-dongs, there's no need to learn. There's no need to try and learn to move because they've got this electronic thing in front of them, giving them all the entertainment they need, and therefore there is no need to try and evolve. There is no need to try and grow.
Yeah, because they're just happy in what they think is their world, because children only know what they're exposed to.
Their needs are being met.
Yeah.
They're no longer bored. They have no longer tried to overcome boredom by trying to communicate a need, by trying to move.
Yeah.
They've just gone, oh, I can sit here and wow, and from wow, I get given this thing, and I can stay here for hours looking at it in quiet. They're happy. There's no need to then move. And it's kind of like, the fun story I always tell people in the gym, my funniest kind of had. He came to me. I said, why are you here? And he goes, because I'm too fat to get in and out of my Ferrari. And the minute he lost the weight to get in and out of his Ferrari, he stopped coming, and he was happy because he could get in and out of his Ferrari. There was a need for him to evolve.
Yeah, for him to
There was a
improve
need for
himself.
him to improve himself. And people forget this. If you're constantly stimulating children with an electronic device, which is brighter, louder, faster, more fun than the real world, there is never going to be a desire to socialize and integrate and learn the real world. And that's also another reason why in that important early phase of 1 to 2 year olds, if children are being exposed to high levels of screen time, there's no need for them to evolve. There's no need for them to learn vital skills.
Yeah.
And that's why at that age, when the brain is meant to be growing at its fastest, creating the most neurons, the most new nerve endings, it's then not, because there is now no need to.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, that's why so many governments nowadays are kind of recognizing it, even if they're not doing anything about it. They've advised that children below the age of 2 don't receive any screen time. Again, some countries, like in Russia, they have bans for screen time, and they actually put enforcements in place for it. But most of the Western countries, they just kind of advise very casually. They're not really saying how concerning it actually is.
Yeah, it's huge. And, to even like context in the terms of like the long-term health damage of electronic devices, there hasn't actually been approvals or long-term studies that show how these electronic devices are actually affecting the human body or civilization, period.
I mean, like, let's, I guess, jump ahead a little bit, but I think it's a good jump to go to the EMF that these devices are emitting. I mean, how many times we've seen firsthand parents walking with a baby in their pram, or even like in the baby carrier, with a phone right above the baby's head. Like literally, and you've got to think their skulls aren't formed, so you're putting pure EMF onto their brain. And then how many times as well, like kids in a pram are holding a phone in front of them.
Yeah, and you consider, back in 2012, the Environmental Health Perspectives Department, they stated a link between EMF exposure and an increased chance of behavioral and cognitive issues in children. Just 2012.
Yeah, that's before like all the
But
nonsense
that's
that's
before
on
4G.
phones now.
That was before 4G. That was before 5G. I think that was even before Wi-Fi had dual band Wi-Fi's. 2012 was a long time ago.
What's a dual band Wi-Fi?
Don't worry about that.
I feel really old.
And you go, oh, that was 13 years ago. Go back even further, in the 90s, it was told not to carry your phones on your hips because
Sticks with
they
me.
increase osteoporosis. There was bone degeneration in the hips of people that wore phones on their belt clips on their hips. And you go, hold on a minute. That was like almost 30 years ago. And that's back when phones literally had infrared, and that's like the most cool thing to send data. I was trying to work out how to send a ringtone via infrared. Like Bluetooth wasn't even around then.
Yeah, I remember.
It just did ding, like ring, ring, and text message.
Yeah.
And you go, hold on a minute. If people knew back then, why aren't people more concerned today? We haven't made these things safer.
They haven't done any studies to test the safety of these since, oh my gosh, since even, like you said, the
90s.
introduction of the modern, like, Wi-Fi's and all of that stuff. And that story sticks with me because I even think about my own personal issues, like with my hip. And when those issues started, I didn't have them from birth, but I used to just carry my phone always in my pocket, constantly on me, especially because of like the work I was doing, where I had to be aware of like what was going on with kids and this and that. And so it was just constantly on me in my pocket. and it led to such bad issues in my hip. It's crazy.
Well, it's even for me, one personal thing, I noticed it today. I remember to bring the Vivo base out with me on a dog walk. And it was a thing I noticed, like, I'd go out, I'd be fine in the morning, I'd wake up, do my stuff, go for a dog walk, and I'd come back just feeling cranky.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I wonder if it's because I'm not carrying my Vivo base, which we've got this thing that protects us from EMF radiation. I thought, well, let me do an experiment.
Yeah.
And I then took it with me, and I wasn't cranky, and I forgot to take it, and I was cranky, and I forgot to take it, and I was cranky. And then today I took it, and I wasn't cranky. And it was like, it's not even cranky, it's like you're just on edge, you just feel hypersensitive. And people don't realize how EMF exposure actually affects people. Like, we did it here, we did,
this was an insane one.
We did a placebo-based sort of study, or a non-placebo-based study, where we installed a device, didn't tell anyone about it, and we checked to see how the data would improve. And all of our staff suddenly reported less hair loss. They didn't know why, but then the kids had a faster rate of learning.
Yeah. We track data for all the kids that come for therapy and see how quick they learn. Their
increased attention, decreased, and you're just like, all we did was plug something in that, that blocked us from EMF.
Even our dog.
And even our dog, his skin rash cleared up. He was having non-stop rashes that we couldn't clear up, and then even his skin rash cleared up.
He literally had them for years.
No, it started when he moved to the villa. We couldn't fix it. It was about a year.
Wow.
No, that was different. I had upset stomach.
Yeah.
And
anyway.
It cleared up, and you go, people don't realize the cause and effect and the damage this is having to society as a whole. And to come back to what I was saying in the beginning, in the context where parents want their children to do better, when people are exposing them to high amount of electromagnetic frequency and radiation that doesn't need to be there, you're actually setting them up for extreme failure. And this is where the problems are really coming in, that people aren't aware of EMF exposure. People aren't aware that even a Tesla passenger seat has off the chart levels of EMF exposure. I've got a reader I tested in one of my clients' cars, and driver's seat was okay. Passenger seat, forget it. Awful.
Yeah.
And you go, why aren't people thinking? In a world where there's so much autism, so much ADHD, so much behavioral issues with children, instead of going, let me try and work out what to do, they try and go, let me work out how to fix it by giving them more iPad, more TV, more games, more of the things that's causing the problem.
And as a civilization, we're not getting smarter, we're getting more and more issues, not just health issues, but like mental health and developmental issues, the rates of autism. I saw literally a study today, and it said 1 in 22 people in California are diagnosed with autism. That's insane. Like that's insane. Like that's insane.
I've just had a good analogy. And this is basically what's happening in society. And this is what's then going to happen. Everyone's getting fat because they're eating too much McDonald's. So what happens is people then get given more McDonald's. So they get more fat.
Why?
And then they get given more McDonald's because they're more cranky. So they get more fat, but they're happy when they're eating McDonald's. Until what happens is everyone is too fat, so therefore society has to get rid of stairs, escalators, and lifts because everyone is too fat to have multi-stories, and therefore everyone now has to live in bungalows.
It's literally what's happening now.
So it's a regression in society where people are chasing instant gratification by focusing on more screen times, more electronics, more of this to give to my children, which is fundamentally driving children with developmental issues, which means as a whole society cannot function. Because I was speaking to one of my clients yesterday about it, I said, this isn't like, it is a huge problem because no one wants to have a child that is special needs. No one wants that. And working with kids and families, I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Yeah, like we've seen firsthand how
destructive it is. It's destructive. It destroys lives and it destroys families. And if you consider 1 in 22 at this current minute, at an exponential rate of growth. Within 10 years, it'll be 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 kids.
In America, where the rates are lower than other parts of the world.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
And you go, hold on a minute, what's going to happen in 10, 15, 20 years once these 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds that are all special needs are grown up? Because when you have a neurodevelopmental disease like autism, that's for life. Someone is going to have to pay for their housing, someone's going to have to pay for their food, their shelter, their things to fill their time.
Yeah.
Who's going to pay for that? their parents, their siblings. Well, the chances are, if it's the firstborn, this is where people go wrong. The firstborn is special needs. They'll then go in for number 2, number 3, number 4. But after your first one, the chances of the second is 30 to 40% higher. And then the chances of then the third is 70 or 80% higher. So it's fundamentally breeding a problem that society is never going to be able to fix unless people wake up and go, I need to stop using phones around children. Stop using iPads for kids. Stop using computer games to entertain them.
I mean, I think, just to cut you off, but I think so much of it, especially for kids, because the habit is set from a young age, of course there's going to be peer pressure when they get a bit older and they get into a school, but if no other kids are exposed, then there's no peer pressure. So fundamentally it stems and it starts in a young age, and it ultimately comes down to, and no one wants to say it, but it comes down to bad parenting and or a lack of knowledge. So there are people we've worked with, like I think of one little boy who came to us, and his mum literally was devastated when she found out that the screen time was the reason that he was having so many issues, because she had no clue. She didn't realize how damaging it was for his kids' communication, his brain development, his play and social skills. She had no clue. And as soon as she found out, she stopped it, because of course she didn't want to do that to her kid. But then there are some parents where it's just a case of, oh, my kid's crying, like, here, have an iPad. You see it, like, we see it so much, like in a park, right? Got to change my baby's diaper. Oh, give them a phone so they don't cry while I'm changing their diaper. Oh, I need to feed my kid, but they're not going to sit still. Give them a phone and then they'll sit still. It's lazy parenting, because they don't want to put in the work to understand how to actually develop a human into a rational, logical, well-rounded person.
Even forget laziness, it's also fundamentally rebelliousness at a core, because also parents don't want to discipline anymore.
That's also true.
And a lot of the issues come with, instead of disciplining and teaching good behaviors, it turns into bribery to quiet the bad behavior. Because gentle people don't want to be disciplined. But you go, hold on a minute. Disciplining is an integral part of childhood development. If you do not discipline your children, you're setting them up for absolute failure.
Discipline.
Because
I really love it.
yeah, because an adult that cannot be disciplined, that cannot be corrected, is just going to fail in life. Because they have to think they're the best in the center of the world. And if you cannot be disciplined as an adult, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be able to learn, adapt, receive correction, grow. You're not going to do anything in life apart from be a spoiled baby that needs to be given everything 24/7.
That's why there's literally Gen Zers running around who haven't even finished a degree yet, asking for like extortionate salaries.
And this is also part of the problem, because screen times, yes, they're easy. Yes, giving them a phone is easy. Yes, giving them an iPad is easy. But you know what's easier?
Just don't have the kid.
Get to maybe 50, 60 years old and being able to retire and then live with your children or enjoy life with your children, instead of being 50, 60 years old and still having to work for your children who are not being who are still children, even though they're adults.
It's true. So this is a really random story, but my nan had a house helper, like, who would come and just clean her house for her once a week. And this is in England. And that woman was 50, the woman who, like, in her 50s, who would clean her house. And her son, who was in his late 20s, 30s, still lived with her, refused to work, and she would have to go and work and like pay for everything. And he literally just sat in his room playing video games. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And then these people, and again, it's like this circular problem. Then they'll get labeled as like autism, old school Asperger's, because they don't want to socialize. But actually, no, they're just addicted to the dopamine. They're addicted to the whatever lights and stuff cause all of that brain.
Changes your brain waves.
That's it. Thank you. Pregnancy brain. And so they just don't want to socialize. It's like what you said, the virtual world is better than the real world. It's brighter, it's louder, it's faster paced.
People don't realize that these devices and these games do cause a dopamine-like effect in the brain. It's why social media is so addictive. Having something new happen every 10 seconds creates a dopamine response in the brain to have to wire attention, to have to focus, something new, something interesting, let me focus. And that is an addictive reaction in the brain. Back in the day, people would be bird watchers and they would sit all day waiting to watch one bird, then they'd get excited. That was a normal brain response. In today's world, forget it. Forget it. Back in, I remember when I was.
People can't even make it past the first 5 seconds of a reel nowadays.
Think about it. I remember when I was in the army, and you'd sit in the same spot for like a day plus. You'd just sit in the same spot. I remember you being saying you sit in the same spot for 4 hours, just
So many questions about that.
looking at nothing, and you just go. I look at it and I go, gosh, how did I do that? I literally do, because you're doing so much and there's so much going on in your life. You go, how did I do that? Oh, to go back,
must have been nice.
Yeah, to go back to being in the army. Honestly, just sit in a hole and you just do nothing. You just sit there pondering your thoughts. But people can't do that.
Yeah.
But that's the reality. That's how our brains were meant to be, much more relaxed, much more chilled, much more slower paced, and being able to focus.
Yeah.
These things create an imbalance in the brain that is fundamentally an addiction, where people are looking for the next hit, they're looking for the next like, they're looking for the next comment, they're looking for the next thing, they're looking for the next video game, and it creates a dopamine addiction in the brain, a reaction addiction brain that they cannot break.
Yeah.
Which then means they're now ineffective at life. Kind of like how if you want to hire someone for a job, you wouldn't hire an opium addict, because a crack addict is not going to be very good at their job, because they're just focusing on their next hit. That's what they're focused on, their next addiction hit. People in today's world are waiting for their next time they can go on social media. They're waiting for the next time they can get on a game.
Like literally, we've had people come for job interviews and stuff, and you put them in one of the therapy rooms and they might not know that there's a camera or whatever it is. And literally, as soon as you leave the room, the second, and it's addiction. It's just pure addiction, and it's so impulsive. Like even hands up, I find myself doing it so many times. You open your phone, and before you're even consciously aware of what you've done, you're like, why am I on Facebook? And you've just clicked and you've just done stuff, and it's just like that impulsive behavior, and that's exactly what it is. That's what it drives. It drives impulsivity.
And you think so for
anything
you
to get the hit.
You as a cognitive adult,
Wow.
I hope you haven't done your IQ test. I know I'm safe. I know I'm safe. I'm 142. See, that's why yours can't have been that high. I don't even remember what it was. It was so low, it wasn't worth remembering. I'm only joking. You're very smart, my love. You're very smart.
He wants something.
And for us as cognitive adults that can maybe try and make a choice, for children they can't, because their brains still aren't fully developed. And the more time they've had to these things, the less fully developed they are. And the reality is, so as we've waffled a lot, is thinking, what can parents actually do about this? Because the reality is, if you want the best for your child, if you want a child that you can engage in life with and have a conversation with and do fun things with that isn't Minecraft or some stupid online game like Fortnite, what can you do? What can parents do about it? Because, I know enough about how damaging it is. My method is just get rid of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the cold turkey. Rip it off, throw it out. You're not going to die. Like, you get a bit of cold sweats, a bit of shakes, but you're not going to die. That's my strategy.
I think the thing is, we have a very radical life again. So we live very different to the average person. We don't have a TV. Like, we have screens that we use for work, and that's it. Or we have an iPad that we use for when we play music, and we have our song sheets up there, and that's it. And again, phones for work or for the occasional scroll, but we very much try to hold ourselves accountable not to do that. And so we don't, we live very differently, and we don't expose our child to screens. The only time we would do that is if we're Zooming family, and the rare time that she loves to see videos of herself as a baby. And so that's kind of our limit. Most people, that's not their reality, and it's also probably not a reality they want.
So what is it they can do?
Well, I think there's a few things, and I think the most important thing is modeling the behavior you want. And it's something I spoke to a family about recently when I did a consult with them, and they were explaining like some mealtime issues, and the daughter just relied on an iPad, and I was like, well, are you sitting on your phone during the meal? Oh yeah. Like dad always was on his phone because of work and stuff, and mom. And so you have to model. If you don't want your kids to be reaching for or desiring those devices, you have to be conscious to not use them around your children, because whatever you're doing, your child's going to want. And it's just natural. That's how they learn.
Right. So you get to be more clean.
That's why our child loves cleaning, because I love cleaning.
Yeah.
And that's why she loves baking, because I love baking. And it's why she loves going to the gym, because we enjoy going to the gym. And those are things she's seen us do. And so she loves the things and she wants to be a part of what we do. And we've even noticed it, that there's been times where if we've had to use our phones more for work, or we've caught ourselves, oh no, we've had a bad week with like using our phone excessively for whatever reason, we've seen it in her that she'll try to reach for our phone
And have a look at them.
and see like, oh, what is this? And like tap the screen and stuff. And so kids are naturally going to do what they see. So being conscious, I think that's the first thing. Be conscious of what you're doing.
Then another thought then for parents, and I guess it's a good question for parents, is to think, okay, you as a parent are not going to use your phone around them, and you're going to stop the TV habit, and you're going to stop gaming habits in front of them. But how do you then get the child to break their addiction? Because they're now addicted. So we're not talking in the case of parents who are starting anew.
Yeah.
We're talking, okay, parents that already have kids that are addicted to devices, and you're going, right, these guys, their verbal diarrhea has made sense. But how do I break my kid's addiction?
So I think there's two things that I would immediately recommend. I personally, you can definitely do cold turkey. I mean, in the field of behavior analysis, it's called extinction, and it works. Like, don't get me wrong, it works, but it's rough for a few days. And so if you don't want to go down that route, I would suggest doing like a gradual decrease in time. So, use the apps that you can get on your phone. So I think there's like on iPhone, it has an inbuilt screen time, and on Android, I think there's an app for it as well, where you can see how much screen time there is, but then you can also set limits, and then it will automatically lock when that limit's reached. And so you can then, talk to your child about it. And okay, today you've only got, maybe before they were having 5 hours a day. So then for the next week, there's 4 hours. Then the week after, it's 3. Then there's 2. Then there's 1. And then on top of that, it would then be replacing that screen time. My best recommendation is with outdoors time, because when kids are outdoors, they're different humans. When they're indoors, it's a different environment, and that would be the environment they're used to getting the device in when they're in their home. And so if you take them out of the environment where they're not, associating with having access to that device, it kind of breaks that connection mentally. And so take them to a park, take them to a playground, go to a friend's house, and those are the best things to
So basically try and reduce the time they use and replace the time with some form of outdoor activity or something different. I guess in the context of UAE in summer, maybe go to a mall or a play zone, play center, something like that, where they are in an environment where they can learn, play, have fun without a device. Are there any other strategies parents can use apart from cold turkey and then like a gradual reduction? Like, what about if parents can't afford to go out of the house and go to play zones and stuff like that? Are there any activities they can maybe try and do in the home that maybe can be useful in kids self-regulating outside of iPads and computer games?
You mean like in terms of giving them an alternative activity?
Yeah, like let's say the kid's finished his homework, or they've just come home from nursery, and then they would normally now get iPad time. What can they do instead of the iPad?
I'd encourage social interaction. So naturally, kids will crave attention from a parent or their primary caregiver. And so replace, if naturally after homework, their reward used to be iPad time, or naturally they get home from nursery and you put on Miss Rachel or something, replace it with just some pure social interaction time. And most kids don't actually care what you're doing in that time. You could be painting with them, you could be doing a puzzle, you could be cooking with them, but it's just about that one-on-one, I'm giving you my attention, because then kids are drawn into that. They want your attention.
I'm about to get deep for the close.
Go on.
Do average adults still remember how to do focused one-on-one time with another human being?
No, and this is as much for adults as it is for kids, because it comes down to that fundamental rule of model the behavior you want.
Husbands and wives, start learning how to have an attention with your husband and wife without having a phone in your hands, without looking at a TV screen.
Talk to each other.
Talk to each other. It's very boring. But try and do it. Create activities as a husband and wife that are not based around an electronic device. Learn to do it yourselves as a couple, and then learn how to do it with other humans, and then learn how to do it with your children. Because you're not going to be able to put up or tolerate an hour of socializing with your child without an electronic device or something that makes a lot of noise and flashing if you can't do it yourself as an adult with a parent who's cognitive in conversation. And never mind a child then.
Yourself off.
Never mind then a child who is coming off electronic device addictions. So
doesn't have rational thinking yet.
So when you understand all of those things, there are some very good things you can do. Understand it is going to be some hard work, but understand the benefits of that. That from our experience, whenever parents and adults decrease the amount of phone time, game time, iPad time, social media time, as human beings, they get happier, they get healthier, they stop being depressed and anxious. And those are all good things.
And I think then just a final summary, aside from like the dopamine addiction that it can cause, there are times that parents also do, like we have to use computers for our work and stuff. So there's simple things that you can do, like use a blue light blocking screen protector. We'll put the links available in the podcast. Glasses, blue light blocking glasses. You can get these lovely fun EMF shields. So when you've got a computer or a laptop, and those are just, again, like simple things. You can get Vivo bases for your house and ones that you can carry around with you, or link all the products, that we use because we tried them and tested them. We love them. And these are things that will help protect you as well. And it helps your emotions regulate better, because when you're exposed to less EMF, you're less irritable.
So any questions you have, let us know. And I'd love to hear what your favorite activities are to do that isn't a phone, iPad, computer game, or TV. It'd be great to see what you're doing with your kids that isn't something electronic.